Today we're going to make a gaff, but not a panties gaff. We're going to make a gaff that requires some sewing, but it turns out to be a lot better and tighter than panties. You're going to need several things. The first thing you're going to need is self fabric, which is the fabric that will actually show. I'm going to flip this over so you can see it. I'm going to use this gold stuff. You're also going to need lining fabric, and these can be anything. I mean, as long as it's not too heavy, you can use any scraps, whatever you have. The third thing you're going to need, besides thread and a needle and a sewing machine, of course, is you're going to need elastic. Now, I like to, for the waistband, now I like to use 1-inch wide plastic, which is plush on one side, so it's soft against your skin, and you'll see where that comes in later on as we get to this part here. So those are the things you're going to need. I'll give you some measurements in a moment. Now, whether you use stretchy fabric or non-stretchy fabric, this happens to be not very stretchy fabric. Measure from your front waistline all the way around through legs to the back waistline. In my case, this is 18 inches. That's the finished length, but we are going to have to add more fabric for the final product to look right. Stay with me, I'll show you how. Whatever that distance is around, it's about where you want it to begin and where you want it to stop, add 4 inches to that. So this is 22 inches. The reason for the additional 4 inches is you need 2 inches on each side for the folding over of this garment. Now, as for the elastic, measure where your waist is all the way around. You know where your waist is. Measure that all the way around, and whatever that is, subtract 6 inches, because the elastic is going to deal with the actual width that you want. But you don't want it to be too big. You don't want it to be exactly the same as your waist, because then it won't be tight and it won't pull up properly. So whatever your waist size is, subtract about 6 inches. You may find you want to subtract even more, but start with that. We're about to cut and sew the elastic waist. This is a waistband, and remember I said take your waist size, whatever it is, subtract by 6. So in my case that leaves 30, but you have to add back into that seam allowance. We're using 1/2 inch seam allowance here, so adding a 1/2 inch on each side would make it a 31 inch cut piece that will become 30 when we sew it together. Okay, we're going to sew this now. You have 2 choices here. You can either do a straight stitch at a 1/2 inch from the cut edge, or you can do a zigzag stitch. Same thing though, you want the left side of that zigzag as it's going down to be at a 1/2 inch. Leave one area, the top, one of the short sides open, but it's a 1/2 inch, and your choice of type. You can either do a zigzag or a straight. I'm going to do a zigzag here for a few seconds. I'm not going to show you all the sewing. And so on and so forth. Make sure you remove your pins before to get to the needle. You can sometimes hit those pins, and that's not great news. I've left the top open so I can get my hand in this, because I'm going to clip these corners up to the stitching. I'm going to cut them this way, so the corners, that way I can fold them and they'll look neat on the outside. Doesn't really matter much. It's the back. I don't know how many people will see that, but I like to do it. Again, everything's still right sides together. We're going to turn it inside out in a minute. Now, as you can see, I've clipped the corners only on the bottom. The top is open right now, so I can get in there, but I put some white on here so you could see how the clipping is. You don't want to cut into the thread at all. Get close to it, but not into it. We're going to turn it inside out, and we're going to poke those corners out so they're nice and square. Okay, we've turned it inside out, and as you can see, the corners aren't punched out yet. I got my hand in there. I'm just going to use my fingers. You could use I guess you could use a pencil or something. If you have a point turner, use that. But you get a nice, crisp little corner there. It's not super important, but it does look better. And that's all you do, and the rest of it is all... Here's the outside. This is... Find the center of the narrow side and put a small clip in there. Cut it slightly. Turn the elastic so that the soft side is to the inside and the rough side is touching the lining of the garment itself. Yeah, I hope you can see that there's a little cut mark there. That's the center point, and there's the center point on the elastic, the center point I'm using. So you're going to take the garment and you're going to put it right up to the edge of the elastic. You're going to pin this, sew it, and then turn it. I'll show you that in a moment. Alright, I've pinned the garment to the elastic. The lining side is touching the rough side of the elastic. The plush side is on the inside. Now you're going to sew across here. You can use any kind of stitch you want. A straight stitch will be fine if you have a non-stretch fabric. If you have a stretch fabric, you can do a zigzag, but try to get it, you know, a quarter of an inch or so from the edge. Try to get it pretty close. You're going to then flip this over like that, and you're going to sew the other side. So when you're looking at the garment, it'll have a nice clean finish on the outside. You will see the sewing, but that's not so bad. You can again sew it down along the near the edge of the near the edge of the elastic on this side. Now you're going to repeat this process on the other side. The main thing is you want, when you finish folding it over, you want that plush to be on the inside, because that's much more comfortable than the rough side touching your skin. One of the things I have done is I have put the seam for the elastic as a side seam. The reason for that is you don't have to do it that way. It looks neater underneath the garment up here. But the reason for that is that if I'm going to sew this down if it's proper. The reason for that, though, is that in case this is too soft and I want it to be tighter, I can easily go in here and sew it to another point and make it tighter. But that's why. You can do it either way. You can put it on the side as I've had done. Just make sure you mark all your quarters, your two centers and your sides, and then sew the side. Now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to fold this over. And when you do that, you'll notice that the plush side is now on the inside, which is where you want it. So we're getting very close to being completed here. But you are going to fold it over and you're going to sew it again. Try to sew as close to the edge of the garment and of the elastic as possible. That'll keep it from rolling when you actually put this on. And you can do that on both sides. That's coming next. Okay, we're going to sew down the bottom now, the bottom of this thing. I hope you can see that here's the elastic. You can also feel it. I'm going to try to get as close as possible to that edge without actually going over it. And down we go. You're going to get some bunching, probably. I'm using a straight stitch, obviously. And I'm going to go all the way down the bottom, blah, blah, blah. As you probably noticed, using a straight stitch on the bottom can result in, with a regular needle and regular foot, can result in this wrinkling issue. Depends on the fabric, but it shows up pretty good. The way to get rid of that and not have that, if it bothers you, is to use a walking foot, which I'll show you in a moment. But look at the difference here. No wrinkles whatsoever. It looks very nice on the front like that. That's using a walking foot. It's a fairly expensive accessory for a lot of machines. It can cost upwards of $60. but they are really worth it with material that tends to slide around like this does. This is what a walking foot looks like. You can see it's got this thing in the back for the mechanics, but basically the main purpose and value of this is that you have feed dogs on the bottom. Those are your normal feed dogs, but this thing has feed dogs on the top. The purpose of that is it will move the fabric at the same time, top and bottom, thereby preventing puckers and so forth when you have slippery fabric. It really works great. They are pricey. I'm not going to kid you. They can easily cost $60 or more. Just to show you a little bit more about how this is, you will remove the this stem for the sewing. I don't know what they call it, but anyway, there's a thing down here normally that holds the normal foot. You actually remove that. You unscrew it or take it off. Well, all machines you can remove it. You can put it back very easily. And then you put this onto that post, and you will see, I hope you can see, that on the side there is this clip thing that goes onto the sidebar. That helps move the feed dogs up and down. Some walking foots don't have it onto this bar like that. Some of them have it so that it just lays on top of it. Either way, it should work fine. And I think every machine you can buy these. I'll give you a little more light here. Hopefully you can see that a little better. This thing moves up and down. This thing right here. That moves up and down, moving the feed dogs. That's it. And it's a little bit. It takes a little bit of, monkeying around to get it all on there. But once you're on there, it's fine. Some people do use walking feet, I guess, multiple, for everything. Now, I think that's going a little too far. That you generally don't need that on cotton or anything. But if you're working with like silk or knits, possibly anything that tends to be slip and create gathers that you don't want, puckers that you don't want, always test. This thing will reduce or eliminate them entirely because of the feed dogs on the top moving at the same rate as the normal feed dogs under here. Unfortunately, I can't show you the finished product, but if you're looking at this video, you obviously know how gaffs work.